Lots of hysterical, hyper-emotional nonsense flapping about on social media as usual following the UK Channel 4 documentary on the accusations of rape against comedian and celebrity Russell Brand. The timing of all of this is kind of weird. The UK's Channel 4 and Times newspapers say that they've been investigating this story since 2019, long before Brand shifted to being an anti-establishment commentator on social media, amassing tens of millions of followers. But others say, now? Why now? Allegations from 10 to 20 years ago are surfacing now. The truth eludes us as usual in this damn culture in which news and propaganda are impossible to separate and bias is everywhere, both unconscious and conscious. And so we all need to consider the details carefully. This is your weekly summary show, so before we get into the commentary, let's recap what we actually know. Here's how the claims played out on Channel 4's Dispatches show, kind of their equivalent of Australia's Four Corners.
The allegations are from the early noughties until 2013. Brand's risque stand-up routine, a huge success on the comedy circuit, he then got his big break on television, joining Channel 4's Big Brother spin-off show.
Why, hello there!
Within weeks of starting the job, Brand was focusing his attention on a new young runner.
It was only one of my first jobs. I was a runner. There was a real sense for me of being the baby and wanting to make an impression on everybody. I think I must have gone to see what he wanted for lunch, and he saw that it was me and he turned around towards me. I wasn't incredibly close to him, but I saw that he had his penis out of his shorts or trousers and it was in his hands. I wasn't going to tell anyone what he'd done because I didn't want to lose my job.
They later began a consensual sexual relationship.
I'm not going to be defending Russell Brand in this segment. I find him an interesting, smart, witty character. I like that he stirs things up and he makes us all think. But while I applaud his recent redemption to cleaner living and family, and I believe people can be redeemed and forgiven for past misdeeds, he did have a lot of misdeeds in his past, and he did a lot of stuff that leveraged off the social and moral decay that's got our society into the mess it's in today. But let's just say he's one of the more intelligent and interesting ones, and that's probably why he's cleaned up his act in recent years. I'm more concerned with how all this gets portrayed in the media, the problems with trial by media, and the effect all of this has on our justice systems. So it's funny that the Channel 4 news show just quickly glossed over a rather important bit of the story there, that these alleged sexual assault incidents happened within consensual, long-term relationships.
They later began a consensual sexual relationship.
With hindsight, and now as an older woman, I can say with clarity that, you know, I felt like I was groomed for sex.
Okay, now that's a wild accusation to make about an ex-boyfriend. And I'm not sure how we define grooming as distinct from courtship in this particular case. She had a consensual sexual relationship with the man, and then suddenly it's sexual assault. That's possible, I suppose, but it does seem odd. Okay, so that's one of them. Let's go with number two, probably the most serious because she was 16. However, 16 is the legal age of consent in the UK. Even consensual sex with someone under 16 and 17 in some Australian states is statutory rape. But this girl was 16 and it was in the UK, so again, if it's consensual, it's not rape.
Alice was just 16 in 2006 when she first met Russell Brand.
He saw me and he'd asked what my business was there. I'd just been to Topshop. He took the shopping bags from my hands and picked a dress out and he said, okay, you're going to wear that on a date with me. When everything was over, one of his friends came round to the house. They both drove me to the tube station. He reached his hand behind the car seat and was holding my hand behind the seat like my mum does when she's in the car. And it made me feel like, I felt very small. I felt like a little kid.
Alice describes being sexually assaulted.
I was pushing him away, and he wasn't he wasn't backing off at all. And so I ended up having to punch him really hard in the stomach to get him off. And then he fell backwards, and I was crying, and he said, "Oh, I only want to see your mascara run anyway."
Okay, so far he's accused of acting like a vile creep. These accusations from this former schoolgirl were pretty graphic and a little bit more revolting than I've shown you here. Some sick sexual behaviour, but nothing illegal if it was consensual. However, Alice claims that although this happened during a consensual relationship, the individual acts that she describes were not done with her consent. Okay, moving on to accuser number 3. Brand had then left Channel 4 and moved to the BBC, Radio 2, and then to Hollywood.
Nadia met Brand at a party and subsequently had consensual sex with him. On another occasion, she alleges, he raped her.
There's that word consensual again, but then later it was rape. I guess that can happen, but how did it go from a consensual sexual relationship to rape?
I was out late and he happened to call me and say, "I've had a really bad day, please come over." And at first I said, "No, I'm not going, it's late." And he's like, "Please come, just come and cuddle with me." So then I gave in and I'm like, okay.
So she was out late, they were in a consensual relationship, he called her, the classic late night booty call. She says no, he says, "Oh, please come over for a cuddle," and then she just gave in. Okay, I'm listening.
He pushed me up against the wall. I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I have a friend here and I want you to come into the bedroom." I'm like, "No, that's not happening. We're not doing that." And I tried to get away from him. And at this point, he's grabbing at my underwear, pulling it to the side. I'm telling him to get off me and he won't get off. And he has that glazed look in his eye again. I was very distraught, trying to get out of the house with him being so much taller than me, like holding me up against the wall, pushing himself in me. I couldn't move.
That same day, Nadia went to a local rape treatment centre to report what had happened. She underwent tests, was given antibiotics and emergency contraception. But she says she couldn't face going to the police.
When I went in for one of my first therapy sessions, I literally couldn't say the word rape. I had to keep saying sexually assaulted, but by the end of it, I was like, oh my God, he raped me.
Okay, that is rape, if true. And that's the problem. How true is it? How true are these memories? How much is embellished both knowingly or unconsciously? At least she did report it to police. But as a society, we do have to ask ourselves at what point the alleged victim has to bear some responsibility of the situation that she finds herself in. Now, some, like the radical feminists, would say absolutely never, that at no point is her agreement to go to his place late at night, likely in full knowledge that he'll want to have sex, in any way her responsibility at all, period. Other people, like the organisation Mothers of Sons and many other women and men, would argue the opposite. By the way, if you found that testimony credible, be very careful your eyes and ears aren't deceiving you. Channel 4 used an actor for that sequence. That is not the accuser speaking. Is that ethical journalism? Is the dramatic music ethical journalism? Is intersplicing it, as they did with lewd sound bites of Russell Brand, of which there are many offensive ones to choose from, ethical journalism? Like this clip that they strategically put on right after the soundbite of that third accuser.
I worship divine sexual female energy. Yes, thanks. I'm saying that not only because it's true, but also because it's nearly the end of the show now. And I know if I say stuff like that about women and divine sexual energy at the end of the evening, there's no way I ain't getting laid after the show tonight.
And you can't really say you weren't warned hanging about with a guy like that, right? So just a reminder, I'm not defending Russell Brand here. I'm suggesting we all look at the way our criminal justice system works and why trial by media is so very, very manipulative and often very distorted.